I had this college professor, a biology professor, that would try to challenge my faith every opportunity that he got. He'd walk into the room and say, for anybody that believes in an almighty creator, how about this? And throw out some kind of challenge, some kind of issue. He talked about how evolution is a fact. It's no longer a theory, that it's been proven over and over again. Talk in terms of fact versus faith, or fact versus fiction. Like he's the one living by facts and I'm just living by some big fictitious story. And after hours and hours of discussion with him after class, I began to realize he just had a huge misconception of faith. My faith, his faith, because evolution is a faith. But what is faith? Turn over to Hebrews 11, verse 1. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Accepting something on faith doesn't mean that it's the opposite of accepting something on facts or evidence. Biblical faith means accepting the truth of something even though we've not witnessed it ourselves. That doesn't mean there's no evidence for it. Just because I haven't seen God doesn't mean that he doesn't exist. And it doesn't mean that there's no evidence for him. I've never seen gravity, but I felt the effects of it. And I'm convinced that every time I drop this bottle, it's going to hit the ground every single time. I've not seen the pyramids, but I know people who have, and I've heard their testimony, and I believe that they exist. I love the way that Hebrews 3:4 puts it. He says, for every house is built by someone, but he who builds all things is God. Now, we understand that first part, don't we? That when we see a house, it wasn't some kind of synthetic process, some kind of interaction between molecules that accidentally produced the house. But we all know, we all believe, and we all have a faith that there was a designer and a builder, even if we haven't physically seen them. And you could apply that principle to everything in creation, even down to the informational code within our DNA. Information doesn't come from non-information. Like it had to come from somewhere, some kind of source, some kind of infinite source of information. Where do you think that could have been? I love the way that Hebrews 11 verse 3 puts it. He says, by faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made by the things that are visible. By faith, we can understand some things that other people can just speculate and hypothesize about. And what my professor couldn't understand is that those who live by facts are actually live by faith. Think about it. They've never seen the beginning of the world. They've never seen something come from nothing. They've never seen life come from non-life. They've never seen one species come from another species. And so they've never seen those things personally. And despite the fact that it goes against the very basics of science itself, they still believe it. They tell stories about it. They take pictures of bones over in Africa and put it into their books, send them around the world, and they preach their lectures from their pulpits. It's faith, not facts, that can fix some of these things. Not that any of that's true, it changes how they live. And the same thing should be for biblical faith as well. Over in Hebrews chapter 11, in verse 4, Abel couldn't see God taking pleasure in his sacrifice, but he walked by faith. In verse 7, Noah never saw a flood, possibly never seen rain, but he believed God and he built an ark. In verses 8 and 9, Abraham had not seen the land to which God had sent him, but by faith he went out. In verse 17, Abraham had not seen God raise anybody from the dead, but he was willing to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. Faith is more than just mentally accepting something, but it's believing it so much that you live your life by it. Maybe you disagree with everything that I've said here. Maybe you're an atheist. But let me hear your thoughts and comments. Comment down below.